All right. Well, hey, let's go ahead and get started, I guess. Today I think we have a pretty light schedule, pretty light agenda for at least from a demo perspective. Uh, for I guess everyone that is watching this recording or maybe not watching this recording, I don't know. I am back, so that's another new thing today. So we'll be stepping back into the illustrious role, I think, of being the MC for this demo for us. So I'm excited about that. I had some good time off and good time spending with the new family member, and that has been really good and tiring. So today, I thought we'd start off with a little bit. We just talk about a little bit about where we're at, what we're focused on moving forward with, or in the short term, and then we'll cut to I think the one demo that we have on the agenda. So in terms of where we're at, I think as everyone knows, we have a big release coming up with 9.0. That is slated for February, I believe, the first or second week around February 9th-ish, right? Keep me honest on the dates, anyone on the call. So that release is coming up. I think the release notes that we have already, there's already a draft PR or a PR out there around release notes. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we get closer to the release date. But obviously some big items in this next release, some really exciting items in terms of extensibility and new updates to extensibility framework, internationalization, localization, updates and new features for my account, some other kind of really good bits inside, or good features and enhancements and optimizations inside this release. So again, we'll kind of walk through those release notes as we get close to the release, and of course talk in detail about it. What else we're focused on moving forward? So obviously for the year, we're kicking off this year and really taking some time to sit back and look at our prioritization of what our features are on the roadmap. Not to say that anything's changing right now, but obviously features around the storefront continue to be a focus for the team, as well as performance optimizations. Some of the developer experience things that we've had on the roadmap continue to be a focus for us. We'll talk a little bit more as we kind of lock down, I think, what our plan is for the next year, now that we're in 2021. And we'll talk about that a little bit more on a future call as well. But just know that we're continuing to do that planning and locking in and figuring out how do we best prioritize the upcoming features, upcoming enhancements for those of you that are using PWA Studio, in love with PWA Studio, want to use more PWA Studio. So I think that's kind of where we're at informally. And we'll cut to Tommy, who has our one demo agenda item for today.
Hey, all right. Well, thank you, Andrew, and welcome back. We've definitely all missed you. So, no more babies. I hope you're done.
Oh, I'm done.
All right. Well, moving on. So, last week, I think I did a demo about some order pagination that is going to land in the release. And then I did my best to tear myself apart about how I didn't like the implementation or thought there was a better way. So, of course, when there's something just bothering you, you have to fix it. So I thought I'd just review what kind of that ideal solution might look like, and see what we can do to maybe get this maybe into the follow-up release, maybe like a 9.10 and not a 10. But we'll see. So first with the demo, and I'm so sorry that everyone on my team's already seen this because I was so excited to kind of show what's happened. So if you weren't familiar, I've limited this to 2 just so it's easier to demo. But pagination worked in a way where every time you loaded more, it would refetch kind of everything in the result set. But now you can see when you load more, it will use a current page argument in addition to kind of the static page size. So now you only get back the additional items that you want to merge into that response, and you're not overfetching all that data anymore. So you infinitely load more, you're never overfetching anything, and your load more should be kind of as performant as the first time you loaded the first set of 10, since the kind of total size is not expanding. So I won't, I'll kind of just breeze through these technicals, because if you're not technical, this is going to be boring. If you are, you can go check out this draft PR and see how we are accomplishing this. So I kind of mentioned this was not the right approach. What I really intended to do there was to tap into the customer orders type and tell it this items field. I want to provide a special merge function. So this special merge function is what allows us to kind of take in just that those little pieces and then kind of merge them into the result set that we have already. So you'll see here, if we fall through this logic, I'll talk about this next. We kind of just take what's in the incoming list, merge it into what's existing. And then there's also some additional logic. I can go into this more, but if I like navigate away and come back, cache and network functionality would refetch everything that was in the cache, which is kind of the behavior we're trying to fix here. So I'm making a decision here, and I think it's a pattern that we'll stick with, that when you return to this page, we're actually just going to reset what's in the cache back to what we have fresh from the network, meaning just those first two orders again. And then if you need to start loading more, you kind of fetch new data again. We want to make sure there's no chance that we're rendering stale data, so that's why we kind of reset back. So that's what this accomplishes. It looks into the past variables to the query, if it's the current page or if no variables are actually passed. We kind of just default to the current page and then reset that result set back. And then the implementation of this is, yeah, I forgot to bump up. I'm so sorry. That's probably really small. The implementation of this is kind of just flipping what we had, where we keyed off of a local piece of state called page size, and then we instead key off a local piece of state called current page. And then our, it's collapsed in here, but our load more orders handler will instead just bump up current page by 1 and continue doing that until it runs out of bounds. So a very straightforward change, fixes the issue of overfetching, keeps this view very performant. Since kind of orders is low touch, this was very perfect for us to run this experiment and kind of make sure that we nail down this pattern for kind of optimized infinite loading. But I think this is what we'll go with, so keep an eye out for this spike. Also an open call for questions, or advice if anybody else has solved this problem. We do have some concerns about this being the default behavior of the app. Like if somebody comes in and tries to customize the app and they want to do actual kind of page pagination, where you only see the current page that you're on, this merge function would make that kind of difficult. So it's a little bit of UX bleeding into kind of back-end technical details, but it's kind of a necessary evil. So we would love to hear some feedback on this approach too, if anybody else has solved this. That's all I got. I think our group is light, but any questions, grievances, concerns?
Looks good.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, Tommy. So I think that's all that we had on our team side for demos. Take the time to open it up to anyone that's on the line, anything that they'd like to demo, talk about, discuss. It looks like Jordan's the only one that's not on the internal team that's on the line. So Jordan.
Yeah, I got something to demo, but whilst preparing, I kind of broke it. So, and now I fixed it again. So I can demo it, but there's a chance it's gonna break. So it's up to you guys.
It wouldn't be the first demo that broke while we demoed it. So
Otherwise, you gotta
it's your
remove the
call.
recording, right?
we have Eric,
Um,
so we'll just use some creative Adobe editing, and we'll make it work.
Absolutely.
awesome. All right, let me share my screen. Um, there we go. You guys are seeing my middle screen. That's awesome. Yeah, so basically, I've been working on some stuff to extend our checkout because a lot of customers of ours are requesting like, hey, in this second step, I want additional functionality like a date picker or whatever exotic stuff they want. And I'm like, yeah, we can do that, but I don't want to override our like base components every time because there's a lot of logic involved. So I basically came up with a bit of a extensibility solution, which I am going to demo with our delivery date module, which is a separate package. So I'm now in our mono repo, but normally you would, of course, like scaffold this storefront, and that's from what you're going to work. So if I open up this index.js, we can take a look at our what do you call it, the context tree, and you can see I commented out the delivery date provider. That is something we are pulling in somewhere here at the top from our Experience Galaxy delivery date context. And if I decomment that and do that here as well, and then on our checkout provider, I can add something called additional events. But I don't want to type that also. I got it under here. So you can see I modified it a little bit with a property called additional events, and then I want to change the shipping step event. And then we can supply that shipping step with a component, a selected component, and a handler. So now if I am going to uncomment all these imports from our third-party package and pull in that hook, we should be able to go to the checkout if it's building. Should be. There we go. All right, so we go back into the checkout again. Please don't break. Yep, we go to the next step. And you can see now this delivery date module appeared with some data that's coming from the backend and stuff. And now if I hit save, it's going to do a call to our backend, or is it set delivery date on cart? And that's just adding it to the current cart. And then what you see here is the selected component, and then in here is the normal component, which are both coming from our external package. And the way we're doing this is if I go inside our UI folder, and then go into lib components, connected, checkout.js. And if I then go into shipping methods, which is basically just a form, right? And on submit, we want to trigger, we maybe want to trigger additional events, additional queries to the backend or mutations to the order. So what we've done, we've basically added something in here, which is going to resolve all the additional shipping steps that we've set on the checkout provider, and it's basically gonna look through all of them, and it's going to fire them one by one. And if all that is successful, it is then going to step into the next step, which is the payment method, and otherwise it's going to error out. And then down here we are rendering additional step components, which is again a mapping of all the components that we've declared inside the shipping step. So our checkout doesn't care what's going to be rendered in here, as long as it's a component and there's a handler supplied to it, which has to be a promise. So if I now, for example, uncomment this, and this could be in whatever another package, third party, doesn't really matter. So I'm creating a test component, a selected test, and a function. Ooh. Now I need to. Oh, my bad. This is what we need to do, I guess. This building. All right, so now we go into the checkout. You can see we have another one, which is could be another piece of functionality in there, and it is going to function the handler from that component as well, and it's still going to set the delivery date on card. And you can see both of their selected components are being rendered here. So in this way, we can choose what functionalities we want to incorporate into each of these steps. So that's basically it, I guess. And then we have in the, let me see, shipping methods. We also have the selected shipping method. And then in here, we're just mapping over the additional step components the same way as we've done in the shipping method itself. So that's what I've built. That's my demo, if you will.
Well, that is awesome. So I'm understanding this right, that you have so you have a provider, and basically the components are set up to look in that context for what components they should render, rather than just directly importing those. Is that?
You mean in our core?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me see. We're going to shipping methods. So these additional step events is coming from our checkout provider.
Yeah,
right?
it's coming
So
from the checkout
additional
provider.
stepping events. Where is it at? Additional events. So yeah, that's just coming from our provider. So the thing about this is that we can basically add everything we want for a lot of different customers without having to constantly override the whole checkout, which is something we have built end-to-end tests again, and otherwise it's just gonna break and stuff like that. So I thought it was a neat solution.
Yeah, I think it's great. I especially really like using React context kind of as is, right, as designed for this kind of stuff. So I think it's a good fit. How do you decide where to do static imports and where to go through this system instead?
What you mean in terms of functionalities?
Sure. When you given that you have this system, to look through, to use the hook that uses context to pull in a component. How do you decide which parts you're going to let go through this system and which parts you're just going to write at the top of the file, import component from place?
You mean import it from the imported inside the shipping method JS or the index?
Right. Yeah. Like inside of the shipping method.
Yeah. So basically, in here, the only imports that I directly want to do is, for example, rendering our shipping methods because that's our base, and then everything else is going to be basically extended via this system.
Okay, so you just did as little as possible, basically, through static imports, and everything else tries to use this system.
Yeah, everything besides the default shipping methods are going to be done through this system. That's correct.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Awesome. Do you have any other questions for Jordan? Very cool. Well, thanks, Jordan. I think the only thing I'd say is I think you have a bug with your date format. You might want to fix that.
What is that?
That's a silly American joke. Don't worry.
Oh.
It's the correct date. Stop, Andrew. It's correct. Europeans will unite.
He's
Exactly.
back.
All right. So if we don't have anything else from anybody on the line, that does it, I think, for our agenda today. I'll take a quick pause. Cool. All right. So thanks everyone for joining again today. We'll see you guys next week. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about the release next week, and then we'll look at what other exciting new demos that have popped up in the meantime. So everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
All right.